4 distinct shockwaves hit the United States this week. Only one was broadcast on live television. The other 3 arrived silently, without fire, without smoke, and without public warning. They arrived in the form of cancelled flight itineraries, revoked digital visa authorizations, and a sudden, unexplainable change to the invisible architecture of American homeland security. And all of these forces are compressing simultaneously onto one single, highly exposed demographic: Chinese nationals attempting to navigate the increasingly fractured bridge to the United States. If you are waiting for a visa, booking a flight, or sitting in an American university laboratory, hoping your optical scanning badge still works tomorrow morning, the ground just shifted beneath your feet. The question is not whether the door is closing. The question is whether you are already on the wrong side of it. Part 1: The accidental date, the ceasefire that changed the target. The first shock was supposed to be a highly classified geopolitical secret. It happened on Sunday evening at a political rally in Ohio. President Donald Trump, departing entirely from his prepared remarks regarding the ongoing Iranian conflict Operation Epic Fury, leaned into the microphone. He was supposed to talk about domestic energy. Instead, he talked about the Pentagon's timeline. May 15th, he told the crowd, his voice dropping to a conversational register. That is when the shooting stops over there. We have the deal. They don't want you to know it yet, but it is done. May 15th. We bring them home, and we pivot. 2 words. 1 date. The White House press pool went frantic. The Department of Defense issued a non-denial denial within 20 minutes. But global financial markets do not wait for official press secretary statements. They react to raw probabilities. And the probability of a sudden Middle Eastern ceasefire sent the global economy into an immediate, violent spasm. Crude oil, which had been choking the global supply chain and pushing California gas prices perilously close to $10 a gallon, plummeted $18 a barrel in a single trading session. Wall Street celebrated. The news networks ran 24-hour specials analyzing the diplomatic fallout. The entire Western world breathed a collective sigh of relief as the threat of a wider regional war seemingly evaporated overnight. But they missed the second half of the quote: "We bring them home, and we pivot." While the world focused on the sudden prospect of peace in the Strait of Hormuz, the massive slow-moving machinery of American homeland security and intelligence was already executing that pivot. With the Middle Eastern theater allegedly wrapping up, the full, unblinking weight of the U.S. security apparatus abruptly shifted its focus back to the Indo-Pacific. The timeline for tightening the borders had just been dramatically accelerated. Part 2. The visa earthquake. A system reversed overnight. The second shock has no explosions. It is happening right now in the form of generic, automated email responses from the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, and consular offices around the globe. It is an administrative crisis that most people will not fully understand until they try to cross a border they thought was open, only to discover their key no longer fits the lock. On Tuesday morning, an emergency internal directive, dubbed the Consular Security Alignment Protocol, swept through the State Department. It was not announced via a presidential press conference. It was not debated in Congress. It was a bureaucratic wall erected through system updates and algorithmic adjustments. The changes hit 3 massive pillars of the Chinese immigrant and non-immigrant community simultaneously. The STEM, F-1 collapse. For years, the F-1 student visa for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. STEM has been the lifeblood of American university research and Silicon Valley recruitment. On Tuesday, the algorithms governing the electronic visa update system, EVIS, and the consular background check matrix were fundamentally rewritten. Over 70% of pending F-1 visa renewals for Chinese nationals in sensitive research fields, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, advanced materials, and semiconductor engineering, were instantly flagged for immediate, mandatory administrative processing. AP. Administrative processing is the black hole of the U.S. immigration system. There is no statutory time limit. There is no appeal. A process that used to take 3 weeks is now engineered to take 6 to 9 months, effectively forcing thousands of researchers to abandon their academic semesters and surrender their laboratory positions. This -1B retroactive review. The directive did not stop at students. It moved to the tax-paying workforce. For Chinese nationals currently holding H-1B specialty occupation visas, a new continuous status review mechanism was activated. Historically, once an H-1B was approved, the worker was safe until the renewal date, no longer. Reports from major tech hubs in Seattle, Austin, and the San Francisco Bay Area indicate a wave of sudden requests for evidence RFEs arriving at the desks of HR departments. These are not for new applications. They are for employees who have been living legally in the United States for years. The government is abruptly demanding exhaustive proof that their daily tasks do not intersect with newly classified critical defense technologies. The B-1 Fei B2 tourist visa purge, perhaps the most violent silent shock, occurred at the ports of entry. 10-year B-1 Fei B2 tourist visas, long considered the gold standard for Trans-Pacific family mobility, were subjected to a mass silent revocation sweep. Parents coming for graduation ceremonies, business executives arriving for quarterly conferences, and tourists holding valid documents landed at JFK SFO and lacks only to be pulled into secondary inspection. Customs and Border Protection (CBP) officers, armed with the new directive, began canceling visas on the spot for minor, previously ignored discrepancies in DS-160 applications filed years ago. Overnight, tens of thousands of lawfully processed applicants found their statuses frozen, reviewed, or outright destroyed. These are not undocumented crossings. These are highly skilled professionals, fully vetted academics, and legitimate visitors who played entirely by the rules. They are legally in the system, but the system just changed the locks without warning. The economic implications are staggering. U.S. universities stand to lose hundreds of millions in tuition revenue. Tech companies are suddenly facing the prospect of losing 15% of their senior engineering talent overnight. But the economic consequences do not wait for the market to adjust. The personal consequences hit immediately. Part 3. The sky closes, security alerts, and severed routes. The third shock is entirely physical. You cannot navigate a border if you cannot reach it. On Thursday afternoon, as the visa chaos was reaching a boiling point, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, issued an unprecedented Level 4 security alert, covering massive swaths of the northern and trans-Pacific flight corridors. The official reason published in the Notice to Air Missions, NOTAM, cited escalated electronic interference and geopolitical risk realignments related to the shifting global defense postures ahead of the newly leaked May 15th timeline. The diplomatic language masked a brutal logistical reality. Direct flights between mainland China and the United States were already operating at a mere fraction of their pre-2020 capacity, crippled by years of bilateral friction. The Thursday directive took an already fragile network and effectively broke its spine. Citing the safety of commercial airliners near restricted airspaces, the FAA mandate forced international carriers to dramatically alter their trans-Pacific routes. The new legally mandated flight paths require excessive fuel consumption and massive detours that push commercial jets past their maximum safe operating ranges without layovers. The practical result: U.S. and Chinese airlines slashed their remaining direct schedules by another 60% within 48 hours. The flights that remain are no longer mere transportation. They are luxury commodities, accessible only to the desperate or the extremely wealthy. Ticket prices did not just increase. They detached from reality. A standard economy class ticket from Shanghai to Los Angeles, which hovered around $1,500 just a week ago, skyrocketed to over $12,000 on the secondary market. Third, party routing through the Middle East or Europe, airspaces that are themselves still choked by the logistical hangover of the ongoing Iran conflict and European airspace restrictions, became the only viable options. A journey that used to take 13 hours now requires 45 hours, 3 layovers, multiple transit visas, and the constant, lingering terror that one of the connecting flights will be cancelled mid-journey. You cannot buy what does not exist. Students who were subjected to mandatory administrative processing and forced to leave the U.S. now cannot afford the flight home. Families who pooled their life savings to send their children to American universities are now permanently separated by an invisible wall of airspace regulations and predatory pricing. For a community that relies on trans-Pacific mobility for its economic and familial survival. The distance between Beijing and Los Angeles just went from a long flight to an impossible, unaffordable puzzle. Part 4. The Convergence. What happens when three walls close? This article covers all three events, because they are not separate stories. They are three distinct forces compressing simultaneously onto the exact same communities. Consider the reality of a single Chinese tech worker living in San Jose right now. They watch the news and see the American public celebrating the impending May 15th ceasefire. They see the stock market rallying and gas prices falling. The dominant cultural narrative is one of relief and returning stability. But for them, the reality is a nightmare of compounding vulnerabilities. Their H-1B visa is suddenly under a retroactive compliance review that their company's lawyers do not understand. If the review fails, they have 60 days to leave the country, but if they are forced to leave, they are looking at a $15,000 economy ticket on a route that might be cancelled by the FAA tomorrow due to electronic interference. And if they leave, the new Consular Security Alignment Protocol guarantees they will likely never be issued a returning visa for the next decade. This is the convergence of geopolitical disruption, bureaucratic hostility, and infrastructural collapse. Immigrants who built their lives on the assumption of a rational, rules-based system are discovering that the rules can be rewritten on a Tuesday morning, and the infrastructure to escape can be dismantled on a Thursday afternoon. The Trump administration's accidental leak about the Middle East created a smokescreen. The media oxygen is entirely consumed by the prospect of global peace. There are no cameras stationed outside the USCI's processing centers. There are no national debates about the cancellation of Flight UA-858. The people most affected are fighting a silent war in their living rooms, refreshing their email inboxes at 3 a.m., checking flight tracker apps, and realizing that the American safety net they thought they were standing on has been quietly pulled away. Part 5. The reality check: what you must do now. The news cycle will fixate on the May 15th ceasefire. The political pundits will argue about who gets the credit. The geopolitical tensions will eventually settle into a new, tense equilibrium. But the structural changes to who gets to enter the United States, how they get here, and how easily they can be removed are not temporary disruptions. They are permanent restructurings of the American border. If you are part of this demographic, panic is not a strategy. You must operate based on the new, harsh realities of the system as it exists today, not as it existed last week. The practical steps for anyone in these communities right now: do not leave the United States. If you are currently inside the U.S. on a valid F-1, H-1, B, L-1, or even a pending green card application with advance parole, cancel all international travel immediately. Do not assume you can easily renew your visa stamp in your home country or a third country like Mexico or Canada. The consular algorithms have changed. If you leave, you must assume a minimum 6 to -12-month delay to re-enter if you are allowed back at all. Audit your digital footprint. The new CBP and USCI's directives rely heavily on automated screening. Ensure that your LinkedIn profile, your academic publications, and your stated job responsibilities perfectly align with your original visa application. The era of close enough is over. Discrepancies are now grounds for immediate revocation. Secure alternative legal counsel. Do not rely solely on your university's international student office or your company's corporate immigration attorney. Their mandate is to protect the institution, not the individual. The landscape is shifting too fast for generalized advice. Find an independent immigration lawyer who understands the specifics of the new Consular Security Alignment Protocol. Check flight status hourly, not daily. If you absolutely must fly, understand that an FAA Level 4 alert means schedules are entirely theoretical. Do not book third-party itineraries through online travel agencies. Book directly with the airlines, and ensure you have transit visas for any Middle Eastern or European layovers. As rerouting is highly probable, one leak date regarding a distant war, one silent algorithmic update in a government database, one security alert clearing the skies. 3 stories from 3 different directions, all arriving in the same week, all pressing on the same families. The geopolitical analysts will tell you that the world got safer this week. But for hundreds of thousands of Chinese nationals caught in the machinery of American immigration, there is no all-clear signal. There is no peace treaty. There is only a generic email stating your status is under review, a flight ticket you can no longer afford, and the sudden chilling realization that the door has been locked from the inside. That is the story that will still be unfolding long after the ceasefire is signed.